So hello everyone and welcome to this 10 questions about cloud podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Welcome MUHAMMAD USMAN. I always use the first question to introduce yourself, basically who you are and what you do.
Okay, so thank you, Pablo. Puig. My name is Mohammad Usman Khan. I'm the founder and CEO, Sherdil IT Academy and Sherdil Cloud. Basically, we provide the multi-cloud training and the cloud managed services, not in Pakistan, but across the world. So my company also provide the AWS cloud training, Google cloud training, Azure Cloud, Alibaba Cloud, and the cloud network specialization like the AWS and Google network designing and infrastructure, DevOps training, and the cloud coding infrastructure designing like the Terraform and the cloud formation training. So these are the some of the courses we are currently offering, not in Pakistan, but across the world in our native language or the English language as well, like Urdu and English both. And my second company called Sherdil Cloud is actually the cloud managed services where we provide not the designing part, but also the support and implementation part of the AWS, Google, Azure, and Alibaba. Like sort of, you can say the one window solution from the training side to the deployment and after deployment support as well. But we are working only the cloud related and the DevOps related relevant market.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
So now I'm curious and I would like to know more about your cloud journey. Could you maybe tell us about your first steps towards the cloud?
Yeah, sure. So before moving the cloud journey, I would like to share my IT journey first, because before the IT journey, right before the cloud journey, first everyone should understand how they should start from the IT background as well. So before the cloud, especially the cloud is actually the suite of services, like including the network services, the DevOps services, the development. So definitely if you are working not in the cloud, but you are working as a network engineer, as a security engineer, as a developer, as a DevOps engineer, you can easily jump into the cloud. But if I talk about the infrastructure designing part of the cloud, which is my specialty, right? So before that, you should have good knowledge or the fundamental knowledge of the network part, like the OSI layers, like the LAN, MAN, WAN, or the network topologies, right? Network designing part, and you can say the CCNA level knowledge, right? Not the certificate point of view, but the qualification point of view, so that it will be definitely very easy for you to jump on the cloud side. Because many of us, right, and I found many of them that they are working on the AWS cloud or the multiple cloud, but due to the lack of the network knowledge, they have completely failed on the network designing part, because they don't know how to design a subnet, how to design a CIDR, and so on. So definitely I would recommend everyone and all of them to if they have a plan to start on the cloud journey, definitely they should have at least the fundamental knowledge, not in the network side, but at least the fundamental knowledge of Linux as well. Because uh, approximate out of 80 to 90% among 100% of the cloud job are based on the Linux side, right? So if you don't have a Linux background, definitely you cannot move forward. Because cloud, whenever you complete the cloud designing, let's say you start a journey on the cloud side, you complete the designing part on the cloud side, but once you deploy the cloud infrastructure, what you will be manage later on, right? On the Windows VM or the Linux VM. Unfortunately, if you don't have a Linux or the Windows background, what you will be do after deploying that infrastructure, definitely you will leave that part, right? So instead of leaving that part, why you not to transform yourself from the cloud to the rest of the items, right? Because only the cloud knowledge is insufficient in today's market, right? You have to get some additional knowledge like network side or system side. Then you can say like you are a good cloud network engineer, you are a good cloud security engineer, or the cloud operation or the DevOps engineer, right? So these are the first of the misconception or the misunderstanding that once you learn the cloud, you can learn or you can do all of them, right? It's misconception. And my journey was cloud for started in the later 2015 when I was working with my US based client. Although I am based in Pakistan, but I was working before starting my own company. I was working last 4 year in the US based, like the Humana, Mercedes Benz, Alltech Internationals, Carriage Home, and multiple more, many more clients, right? So I started my journey in the cloud designing part, and my first task, very first task, was cloud to design the whole cloud using the JSON code, which normally called the infrastructure as code. And I was very much disappointed, right? Because I don't have a knowledge of the cloud formation side. Even I didn't know what is cloud, right? But I have the strong knowledge of the exchange network side and the some fundamental of Linux side. So it took me approximate 8 months to write a 40 lines, one single 40 line codes, because I was the non-native development background. I completed my graduation in the telecom engineering from Mikra University, so I didn't do any sort of work of the development part, right? So it was the very new part for me, and I didn't work on the cloud side as well, right? So without initializing, without the visualization of the particular product, it will be very hard to write the code, because if you cannot visualize it, you cannot draw it, and if you cannot draw it, you cannot implement that, the basic perspective, right? So once I complete the code, I move forward towards the certification part. I passed my sysop exam back 2016, and I'm already teaching from the last 17 years, not in the cloud, but the hardware part, Cisco side. So I love teaching, right? So I start teaching cloud computing in October 2016, right? From now till onwards, I have trained more than 500 IT professional in 12 plus countries, right? Not in AWS domain, but Google Cloud domain, Alibaba domain, DevOps domain, and the technical and sales and marketing part as well, relevant to cloud. What customer want, how you convince your customer to come on the cloud, how you transform your customer from the traditional IT infrastructure to the cloud IT infrastructure, how you relevant your services from the cloud physical infrastructure like the storage part or the virtual machine part to the cloud part, right? How you convince your customer to start your hybrid deployment, like the sum of part using the physical infrastructure and sum of the part based on the cloud infrastructure. So that's for my expertise, and definitely if you love your work, definitely you can move forward, right? So I completed my journey. I should not say the completed. I actually completed some of the part of the cloud AWS part. Then I jump into the Google Cloud because I love to start the multi-cloud part. So I started Google Cloud from January 2019, right? And in the January 2020, I jump into my third cloud, the Alibaba Cloud, right? So now I am currently teaching AWS Cloud, Google Cloud, Alibaba Cloud, advanced networking based on the Google and AWS hybrid infrastructure, not for the training perspective, but also the design and implementation point of view, right? So these are my career, some of my career journeys, which I share with you guys.
Wow, really impressive. It's awesome, all your experience and how you describe it.
Thank you.
And now I would like to know what's your opinion about the advantages of the cloud, and why would you recommend a company to migrate to the cloud?
Oh, yes, definitely. The first is the capex value. For example, if you expand your infrastructure, like you are working in an e-commerce, you are running your e-commerce business, definitely you share some of the sale and you some of the events relevant to your clients and customer. In that part, what you need to do, you just need to expand your capex infrastructure, like the capital infrastructure based on physical hardwares or the virtual VMs. In that case, if you compare with the cloud, any one of them like Alibaba, Google, and AWS, Azure as well, you can just simply grow your infrastructure with using some clicks, and your not zero capex value, and the 90% reduce your opex, like the operational expenditure in that part. Second thing, you don't need to buy any sort of hardware even for the single machine. That's the very interesting part, right? Because definitely every hardware have the limited lifespan, like 2 years or the 3 years. What you will do after 3 years? You will put it in the garbage, or you will try to run at least until the server goes died, right? So in that case, your client will suffer, your business will suffer, and definitely you will need to hire a team which we will look 24/7 instead of the automated way in the cloud, which will handle by itself, like auto healing, auto scaling, vertical scaling, and the horizontal scaling as well. And the pay as you go service, the most interesting part. If you run some software, or if you want to test some codes for 10 to 15 minutes, you will have to pay only for 10 to 15 minutes, instead of unlike the physical infrastructure where you need to buy the hardware, where you need to configure the hardware, which will take approximate 2 days, or instead sometimes 1 week to put your customized application. Then you will be able to complete your testing and the POC, like the proof of concept. So that's the beauty. And the fourth thing, the go global in minutes, like the agility. If you talk about the agility, you can create your one machine like 3 p.m. at Sydney, and the 3 or 10 after 10 minutes you can create your second machine as a failover in Europe or the US side, right? And the last thing is security, the most important part. So in the security side, instead of the physical traditional hardware where you need to put the physical security as well, here you just need to set up a virtual security. That's called a security in the cloud and the security of the cloud. Security of the cloud is managed by the cloud provider, like the entrance of the data center touch the physical hardware. Definitely we cannot do this. But instead of the security in the cloud, where we need to manage our infrastructure using the stateless and the stateful firewall as well, right? We can do that, right? So these are the some of the things. And using the compute capacity, right, we can do anything like the batch instance, like the serverless architecture, like the gaming servers, and what we want we can do, right? Definitely AWS is providing 170 plus services, Alibaba is providing 120 plus services. So what you think in your mind, you can do it.
I totally agree with your opinion. You really touched the most very important points. New topic. I believe that cloud computing knowledge is going to be a standard skill over the coming years for almost any job. So pretty much like knowing Microsoft Excel or Word. What do you think about that? Do you also think that cloud knowledge or cloud skills is going to be a standard?
Yes, definitely, because uh, it's completely a cycle. Like if you hire in a company, and if the company directors or the company manager have decided to move the whole infrastructure on the cloud, how would you stay in that company? Either you either you leave the company, or either you need to transform yourself from the traditional IT guy to the cloud IT guy, right? So as you can see that the many of the companies are sharing uh, the jobs related to the DevOps engineer or the cloud engineer, or the one more thing, the multi-cloud engineer. Because we cannot say that after 2 to 3 years we will stay in the AWS cloud, or we would stuck in the AWS cloud, or we'll move towards the DR side in the Google cloud. So I would recommend everyone, because I apply all of them, all of the things on myself. Like I completely transform myself from the single cloud to the multi-cloud, and then I will recommend all of them to start from the single cloud, then move towards the multi-cloud, and then towards the DevOps side. Because company seems like they're looking the jack of all trade, but definitely we cannot do this. But we can initiate on day by day basis, right? At least spend 1 to 2 hours a day to learn new things for yourself. Make a goal for 6 months, 1 year, and try to achieve that goals. Like if you have a plan to complete the Docker certification or the community certification in next 3 months, go and try to complete that part, right? Because time will spend on daily basis, right? And every minute and every hour is important for us, right? So spend time for ourselves, spend time to transform ourselves from one era to second era, right?
Yeah, I really share your opinion, and I agree. I want to ask you a question that I mean, it's most of the common questions I get, which is which cloud provider to use. Um, what are the key factors for you to consider when choosing a cloud provider? It can be
uh,
AWS, Azure, but why?
it's a really difficult question because it's not based on the technical point of view. It depends on the economic point of view. Because if we choose the Alibaba cloud, Alibaba only have two data centers in the US side. One is Virginia, second is Silicon Valley. So in that part, and most of the US citizens and the US area definitely would not like to use the Chinese product due to the economics and the government issues, right? So in that case, we normally recommend to the AWS side. Even if we try to convince the US companies to move on the Alibaba cloud, they strictly refused. Either they want to move on the Google cloud or the AWS cloud, but definitely the AWS and Azure cloud market share is comparatively much high as compared with the Alibaba and Google. So if we talk about the market share is approximately the 30 to 40% market share of AWS cloud, same as for the Azure cloud, while the Google market share is 15 to 18% and the 5 to 8% of the Alibaba cloud, because most of the China market are based on the Alibaba cloud, not in the cloud. So I would recommend to use AWS or Azure cloud because they have much more services, much more region, and much more availability zone. But Google cloud is increasing their facilities, increasing their services day by day, right? So normally, if you are looking for the infrastructure as service, I would recommend for the AWS cloud. For DevOps part, I would recommend for the Azure cloud. And for the machine learning and AI part, like automation part, I would recommend for use to the Google cloud. The most important factor of the Google cloud, which we'll not see in the Azure cloud or the AWS cloud, is the multi-region deployment and the backend dark fiber, which is owned by the Google cloud as well. Neither the AWS nor the Azure cloud have its own fiber. They are dependent on the third-party fibers, right? So if you are looking for the 80 gigabit connectivity or the 70 gigabit connectivity, definitely Google can do it. Google can provide you, but AWS and Azure cannot give you. So these are the some of the pros and cons I shared in front of you in order to understand that which cloud is better. So it will be hard to understand that which cloud is better for which customer, depend on the scenario. So normally what we do, like if you come across for the free consultation, like you have of 10 physical servers and you are looking to migrate on the cloud, but you are confused which cloud is better for you, what we will give you, we will give you the Excel sheet along with the comparisons of all the services which you are looking for to transform your physical infrastructure to cloud. We will compare between among AWS, Google, or Azure cloud, not Alibaba cloud, because inside of US part we not add the Alibaba part, right? So once you compare all of three of them, then you can easily understand that which part is basically is good for you in terms of pros and cons. Definitely every cloud infrastructure has some pros and cons, but you need to finalize, right? So that's the beauty. Might be possible that you could set up the hub and spoke network, like the primary was AWS, DR was Google cloud, and the testing and development for Azure cloud, right? So I work with some of client. They are working with three clouds like AWS, Google, and Azure, and the physical infrastructure like the data center using the direct connect. So we completed the hub and spoke network between AWS, Google, Azure, and physical infrastructure using Google Interconnect and AWS Direct Connect and Azure Express Route as well, so that they have the good speed like up to 80 gigabit per second speed among all four physical area like AWS, Google, Azure, and physical infrastructure as well. So it's totally depend on the client nature, client's requirements, and the physical geographical locations where you want to deploy that infrastructure.
Well, thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you.
You really touch very important and interesting topics.
Mhm.
So you already mentioned the word multi-cloud.
Mhm.
We have seen that in the last years, this word has become really trendy and popular. What's your opinion about multi-cloud approaches?
Okay, so multi-cloud approaches is based on, like I said, the pros and cons. Like some services are not exist in the AWS cloud. Some area where you will not see the AWS location or the region where the Google were exist. Like in the Bahrain region, AWS are exist in the Bahrain, but Google are not available in the Bahrain region, right? In the Singapore regions, right? The Google is directly not available, might be in the Singapore or the Latin area, right? So these are some of the physical area discussion, and the some of the AWS and the Google services. Like some services are exist in the AWS cloud, but Google is not sharing, like the dash service. For example, AWS provide the AWS workspaces, which is the desktop as a service. Google doesn't provide some sort of services. AWS, Google provide the multi-region VPC, virtual private cloud, where you can create first region in the US side and the second region on the Europe side, both same different subnets, both have different CIDR under one VPC. It's called a multi-region VPC designing, right? But unlike AWS, which only provide one region with multi-zone, including one CIDR block, you cannot split them like 192 or the 172, but Google can provide. So these are some of the pros and cons. If you are good knowledge among the clouds, definitely not you can only convince them, the customers, you can give them the best option, but also trying them to transform from one cloud to the another cloud, or the physical infrastructure to the multiple clouds, right? But you should have good knowledge. Some of the IT professionals, not everyone, had just passed the AWS or Google exam using the dumps or the pre-pass papers, but definitely they are certified, but they are not qualified. They don't have even knowledge, right? So they are wasting their time, right? They are not sincere with them.
Yeah, you, very, very, very good point. And you are talking about multiple cloud providers, such as AWS, Azure, Google, Alibaba. How do you think the global market share is going to look like in, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years?
It's depend which cloud provider provide the best services in next 5 years. Simply answer.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the market is really, at the moment, there is a big player such as AWS, followed by Asia. But we see in the last years that many other cloud providers are appearing, such as Oracle, IBM, Tencent, Alibaba. I was just curious about your opinion about that.
Yes, no doubt.
So you already mentioned about the Chinese cloud providers. We see a huge increase on the cloud
Yes.
infrastructure expenditure in the last years from the Chinese cloud providers.
Yes.
How do you expect this to evolve in the coming years?
Chinese cloud providers definitely is grooming, but as the magic quadrant, the Alibaba cloud is still in the niche players, right? Not in the market leaders, right?
Yeah.
So definitely, if we talk about the Alibaba cloud, they are the good in the Asia side, right? The most of them, and most of the Asia side are based on the Alibaba cloud, right? Because Alibaba AWS data center are, most of them are Europe and the US side, but definitely is across the world. But the Chinese market's beaten and moving fast towards the cloud side. Even the 2021 and the 2022, the FIFA football cup, I think the 2021 and 2022, based on Qatar, is hosted on the Alibaba cloud big data analysis service. They have won their partnership,
Well,
but still have the very less market share, like 8%, unlike the AWS, which has a 50% approximate.
yeah, that's a huge difference.
Yes.
So, could you share with us what was the last thing or one of the latest things you learned about the cloud? I mean, it can be a strategic, technical topic, or a tool, or whatever
My
you share with us.
What I learned in my last.
Yeah, one of the latest things that you learned.
Okay, so currently I am learning the Azure cloud, because I'm not good in the Azure cloud side, because my expertise on the Alibaba, Google, and AWS side. Because although we provide training and we provide consultancy, but definitely I am running my own company, so I have my own team, I have my employees who is running on the Azure cloud and Azure things, right? but definitely some of the things which I need to understand on the Azure cloud. So I'm currently looking on the Azure side, and sort of the Terraform, right? Although I worked in the Terraform 3 years before, but most of the thing I totally forget, because my specialty in the cloud formation. So I'm looking the Terraform and the Kubernetes as well. So these are my next 6 month plan, which I'm looking to fulfill along with my training part. But definitely, I spend approximate 10 to 12 hours of training on daily basis, right? So it will be hard for me to learn new things to spare time, because I'm running my own company along with the worldwide trainings, the corporate trainings, the group trainings, and the one-on-one trainings as well. So sometime I spend time on the 6 to 7 hours on back-to-back trainings, right? So it will be hard to learn new things.
Wow, really busy agenda.
Yes.
So the last question.
Mm-hmm.
You know that there are a lot of sources and information out there about cloud, and sometimes it's hard to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Could you share with us your sources, or what do you use to keep yourself up
Okay.
to date?
Okay. So normally, the whole world is moving towards the Udemy, the Coursera, the Linux Academy, Cloud Guru. They normally provide the knowledge, but if you learn the training with someone who could teach you one-on-one, the live training, just like me and you, right? They will give you the experience in terms of knowledge, right? Which
Yeah,
you will save your time, right? Because the instructor which you are giving you the training has spent a lot of time to put a mistake like the 1,000 time or the 1,500 times. Let's give an example, right? So definitely the instructor already learned from their mistakes, and they will give you the complete training on the basis of mistake, right? For example, like we provide the AWS training, which you can say the world longest AWS training, right? Because we provide AWS training based on 80 hours, right? 80 hours based on the 800 plus slides and the 45 hours plus lab. And we have our own software which we will give you the mock based test, right? And the final project which be based on 2.5 hours in order to deploy the client mock client infrastructure design, right? So that part, we created our own design, right? We created our own AWS training material. We design our whole AWS course. Neither AWS nor other training provider we took any help, right? So these are the some of the part which make our students successful, that they could work anywhere in the world. We promise with our all of all of our students that they can work anywhere in the world with level 1 and level 2 support. But definitely we cannot give guarantee to pass any exam, because they need a lot of theoretical knowledge, right, in terms of documents. So we spend time in order to make themselves the market ready cloud professional.
wow, that's impressive.
Right.
So that was it. That's what. Well, that was it. Thank you very much for your time and for participating. It's been a pleasure for me having you here with in the podcast. I will leave all your social networks in the description in case anyone wants to contact you or your company.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you very much for your time. And
Okay. Thank you.
see you in the
Thanks for
next
your time.
podcast.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Have a good day.